you know when you meet someone who's just not real.
Yeah.
You know it.
Yeah, when they're trying so hard to get you to see them.
And it almost deters you.
A spiritual chiropractor.
My friends call me the real life care bear.
Talk it out.
Welcome to Black Sheep Thinking episode number
9
on relationships. I am Morgan Pierce.
And I am Andrew Potvin.
And we are best friends and life coaches that are here to help people understand the difference between their thinking and who they are when they let thinking go and become the truth of who they are.
Yeah.
And we talk about different situations in life.
Yeah. Things that we'll run into using the understanding that we share with people. And tonight we're going to talk about the family and friends side of relationships.
Part 2.
Yeah.
Relationships part 2. So let's start off with this. Relationships, let's start with friends.
Okay.
And work our way to family.
Okay.
So friend relationships for me have always been a challenge. Not anymore, but when I was younger, because I always thought, like most people, the more friends I have, the cooler the happier I be. The happier,
yeah, exactly.
Not really the cooler, the happier I be.
Yep.
And I'm not saying get less friends, but I find people treat friends like poker chips. You know, they come and go.
Yeah, they're exchangeable.
And so when people made that choice for me early on, I would think I didn't love them properly, or I did something wrong, or I was easy to abandon.
Taking things personally.
Yeah, making it like just believing that it was about me and the personal mind existed. And I don't know how many of you have had that experience where, you gave your very best to a friendship and they ended up walking out and crush you. And now I'm at a point where I just understand they have different, they need to go and experience a different thing in their life, and I don't make it about me. Matter of fact, even if I did, especially when I've done nothing wrong, or at least in my story, I've just done my very best.
Yeah.
And they've left with anger, and then I've learned from our mutual friend and coach Andrew McKee is like you own 100% of the relationships you have.
Yeah, that was a really good lesson for me too. Is like the way you show up for yourself is the way you show up in relationships.
Right.
And
that you don't need they don't need to love you back, because if you need that, then it's more of a scorekeeping.
Then it's a scorekeeping situation as opposed to just authentic friendship.
Yeah, it's not that there's not accountability in the relationship, but it's more about understanding that people are in different journeys, and that you don't need to be wounded if someone makes a different choice. That time was served. A lot of people are like, they don't make you a priority, get rid of them, and you're like, there's lots of people that don't make me a priority, that they call me like every once a year, and it's like we've never missed a beat.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that's kind of the mindset that's been I see out there a lot, is that keep your circle tight, and everybody else is kind of like put up walls and block them out, right?
Right.
And it's much better if you just kind of have, like you've taught me, is like discernment. Like know who you want in your immediate circle, but if there's other people in your life that just aren't there all the time, it doesn't mean that you have to block them out. Doesn't mean they're not your friend. Doesn't mean you don't love them. Right. It just means you're not going to maybe spend more of your time with them.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong. I think rejection from the judgment piece is where people think they need to, either they like keep them close or they push them hard away.
Yeah.
We know what you push away, what you reject perpetuates.
Yep.
And so there's been people I've had to take space from because the relationship they were in turmoil.
Yep.
And I would say, like, if they're drowning, a lot of people think they have to run in and rescue them, but they'll drown you with them, metaphorically.
Yep.
And if you run away completely to the point where you're mad at them and you turn your back, then when there is an opportunity to heal, or they grow too. They can come back in your life without any baggage. Yeah, which would be important. That's what dharma is, actually. People say karma. Sorry, karma. Karma. Karma is actually about baggage. It's not like they say bad karma is like bad, mojo. But it's actually about bringing bad baggage. Apparently, dharma is the best term for.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, what goes around comes around.
Oh,
that's dharma. Anyways, you learn things when you have a philosophy roommate. Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it. So I always think there's lots of different reasons to have friends. Many of them is just to experience being alive together.
Yep.
But the 4 friends that kind of have been supportive to me are categorized. I kind of say 5 if you have a partner, but I never want to put that pressure for your partner to be all things, because they are all things for us often. And if it's only that, they can break them by going to the well. So challenger is the one that we've talked about, where they encourage you to go past your limitations and challenge you to do often they'll even pick apart ideas and they seem negative, but they're picking apart to make sure that they're ironclad before you go share them with the world.
I would say you're probably that for me.
Yeah, I get that from a lot of people. Or as they used to call it, the jerk friend. But they're not they might be an asshole, but they're your asshole. Which means they probably have to have a shower. Number two is the cheerleader, which I think that's where you've been a lot of these things for me, but like cheerleaders, like the you can do it and encouraging someone to see themselves when they're not seeing themselves. The energizer, and we have lots of people like that. I find I would I don't want to name all these people, but we have lots of people that are energizers around us. Yeah, and then the loyal confidant, that's the person that
you go to, you can say anything to, no matter what.
Your trust is trusted. Yeah, there's not going to be spread across town. Yeah. And so... And I let people know if they kind of how they play those roles for me, if I'm looking for that, because there's nothing worse than going to like an energizer and they're trying to be a challenger and you're not getting, what the support, and it's not using people, but helping them understand like what they're great at in your life. They might not even be aware of it.
That's true.
So it's a good way to access and see, do you have those 4 people? But I mean, I don't really categorize my friends that way. I mean, at the end of the day, friendships.
Can you imagine getting little badges?
Hi, my name is Challenger. But most times people, I think people blow off people too quickly because they're in friendships. Oh, by the way, that actually, to circle back real quick.
Okay, yep.
If you have not watched episode 2, where we talk about boundaries, go check that out. Yeah. And if you have not watched part 1 of relationships, watch that, because a lot of this is transferable.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of stuff from romantic relationships that will transfer into this. They're very similar. Relationships are relationships at the end of the day, and the only difference between a romantic relationship and a friendship would be, like we say, the intimacy side. Yeah. Unless you're like that with your friends. Yeah. Unless you're like that with your friends. Which is, it's okay. We're not saying that's a bad thing.
Yeah. Maybe it's a good thing we've never tried it. Maybe this first time I can't. Just kidding. For those of you on audio, you're like, wow, man, I got to check out the YouTube. Anyways, moving on. So the real thing about friendships that like we probably haven't brought up before is that when there's a conflict, how do we deal with these things? And what stories what can we access here? Okay, well, when we talked about, I just had that headbutt thing with the communication. Usually, for me, it's like a communication issue. I ask for something a number of times respectfully for an agreement. It doesn't occur, and I get frustrated. We all have emotions. So I just had that thing with a good friend of ours. I won't say his name. It rhymes with Mike. Just kidding. So Mike, my buddy Mike and I, he's a great friend, one of our best, and wonderful man. Instant connection with him when I met, and we had kind of a misunderstanding on trying to set up a night with the guys. I asked for clarity. He said maybe. That caused me to make a decision like it was going to be a yes and rush my personal life, and then he bailed, and that caused us to really. It was just a headache, and I was just frustrated he hadn't communicated. He was frustrated because I wasn't hearing his life was full. And we just got upset and we're a little bit sharp with each other. Like when he said we could talk about it tomorrow, I might have said facetiously, maybe. Which became a catchphrase for a couple days. But I mean, we took time, and after a few days, I reached out and said, space turns to distance, distance turns to stories turns to judgment, and judgment destroys friendship. So I would love to know where you're at and what do you need. And both of us just came in at that direction. Instead of, most people argue to prove their point or to be seen, but because Mike and I don't really live in the world of identity anymore, it was
you're able to have a conversation to get clarity around it. Just by being curious and seeing where the other person's at.
And then both of us felt understood, because that's where we lead, is from a place of understanding. And then that was it. We're back being buddies, and life is awesome, and high fives and hugs. And so, that's, most people in those friendship things feel like someone's doing something. They have a story about how they're not enough. And then whatever behavior they're witnessing, because that thing was about me, about my life, and about not being, and his thing was about him, and understanding where we're both at. It doesn't mean we're bad people, but if you want to be seen as a good friend, and this is the initial thing, I don't want to be seen as a bad friend, so he wants to reject my story, and I couldn't, I'm trying to be heard and seen. to be
and you start
validated.
defending your point, you defend your
Yeah.
identity, and a lot of it would come down to as well, like defending your intent, and like you've taught me, it's more about understanding what your impact was, and then having a conversation around that,
Right.
and then how to shift that.
Because this is a great point to say, like, we're human beings. We fall for the same thinking traps that everyone else falls for. We're not perfect.
Yeah.
We're in this game with you. And the only difference between where we were and where we are that we're trying to lead you to is the concept of efficiency, of how fast we can get out of
These things don't last nearly as long.
No, not even close. Like,
No.
for old friendships like that, I used to tell you there was like dead bodies. I used to walk away from people that would hurt me. By the way, on that note, on friendships, my favorite friendship story is a friend named Julie. And if you have to check out, if you want to hear this story about how a misunderstanding almost lost another friend and the turning point where we created this understanding for us, check out Andrew McKee's podcast, People Who Suffer. You can find it on many podcasts, Apple,
Spotify,
Google,
all
that.
that.
Look at, I think it's something like that. Episode 11, the first one with my name on it. If you hear that, people love the episode, but it's a really cool story where Andrew came in my life. McKee, we call Arizona because got enough Andrews, and you'll hear another story about how a friendship is salvaged through this incredible understanding and how it led to us really where we are today. It was the beginning of a lot of great things for me, and so friends have always, been challenging because I think I had to collect them.
Yeah.
Collect all, it's like Pokemons.
I was like a clinger in a friendship, right? Like I would hang on to a friendship, and even if it was like, I could see that it was maybe not the best friendship for me to be in, I would just stay and I would hang on and cling, believing that length of time meant how good a friendship was.
Well, yeah, that makes sense for a lot of people,
Yeah. And so, I mean, however, like we've talked about, we have those friends like you and I that come into your life, and there's just that instant connection, right? Like, you feel like we've been friends for like maybe 5-6 years. Yeah. But I feel like I've known you forever.
I know, it's painfully slow. What changed? Because when I met you, you were reformed. We talked about people pleasing. You were a very caring man and very accepting. What shifted in some of your friendships for you from feeling bad about leaving to understanding?
Well, just that simple understanding of like, if it's time for space in this relationship right now, then that's okay.
Right.
And if that person comes back into my life, and now when we connect, it's not like, in the past when those friendships would end or we would have more space in our lives, the connection, meeting back up was always like that. Oh, I've had all these judgments on you and all this story in my head about what really happened. And then you're, instead of, coming in with a clear understanding of where you're really at, I'd have this story running in my head about what I thought the reason was that we weren't seeing each other anymore. And so there was always that awkward energy. Whereas now I'm just like, well, I don't know whether it is on their end, but I know on my end for sure. I'm like, hey, it's nice to see you. And
it reminds me of a quote. So it sounds like you went from like worrying about the only way you thought you could distance yourself is judgment or acceptance of the behavior. Now you're using discernment, which reminded me of the quote about the stories.
Oh, yeah. The two from...
when I'm clear.
Yeah.
No, but we'll get to that.
Okay.
When I'm clear.
When I'm clear, I see people from where I'm at. And when I'm not clear, I see them from where I'm at. Wow. It's the opposite. When I'm clear, I see others from where they're at. When I'm not clear, I only see them from where I'm at. That's it. Wow. That was a horrible...
No, it's good.
That was good.
I've done that before.
Tongue twisters. Tongue twisters.
Just repeat the same thing. To see it again for those you who are maybe, when I'm clear,
just
I see people from where they're from. When I'm not clear, I only see them from where they're from. That kind of moment of clarity is understanding that people are living in a story sometimes, and to, rather than judging them and feeling you're not enough, to see it, and then rather than being like, oh, they need to change, be like, oh, I get it. And that's where pure understanding comes in most relationships, is like, oh, when we remove our identity, because when there's two identities, people are speaking thought to thought, it bounces off. There's
and that's when you have that conflict.
That's what happened to Mike and I. And then a moment, one of us dropped our shield, me, and I went and called him, and so I wrote him and said, hey. It was hard because I was like stubborn for it.
I know. I know you resisted for sure. I was like, he'll come around. Just
but Mike's worth it, and everyone is worth it. I mean, and so when I dropped my shield, kudos on Mike. He dropped his. We had a conversation heart to heart, or what we would call spirit to spirit, consciousness to consciousness. That was an authentic connection again. And then all the stories fade away instantly. And what's left is understanding. Raising consciousness isn't about trying to get to a higher level of thinking. It's about letting thinking settle so that the real us can show up, because there's always displaced love underneath a friendship or any relationship for that.
Of course. And it's challenging too, because in that situation, it worked out really well because Mike was willing to drop his shield and step into that. Sometimes you run into people that aren't. And that's when discernment comes into place, where you're like, okay, well, maybe it's time for me to create a little bit of space between me and this person, because I can see that they're hurting. And like you say, when they're drowning, if you stay with them, you can easily get back into trying to fight and rescue.
Right.
And
I've been guilty of that, where it's like you're trying to love them for them. You're trying to love them.
If I love you enough, maybe you'll love me.
If I love you enough, I can try to get your love for me. We can make this work. Yeah, and that's where people get exhausted and frustrated, and then they blame that person.
Yeah.
For not being who they need to be.
Yeah.
And once again, it goes back to probably what we talked about in relationships, where it's like they're just doing their very best. And, understanding that they have limitations, and the limitations don't make them a bad person. They're just in a different part of their experience.
Yeah,
and when you see them as human and that inner beauty in them, you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
What else do we have in the world of friendships? We talked a little bit about good ones and how to keep them and what kind.
Yeah.
And overcoming challenges.
Yeah, we did. I know in romantic relationships, we did conflict-driven romantic relationships. And I mean, I guess really that last bit that I summed up would sum up kind of like a conflict-driven friendship, right? It's just like understanding the discernment of seeing someone for
and to stay curious and ask questions, and not making it about blame once again, because too many people play the blame game. And so those things aren't helpful. Might have mentioned that too before. Anything else that we mentioned prior to talking about this that we should bring to our awareness?
No.
If it pops
something
up.
if something comes up.
Yeah, a story maybe. Anyway, so we'll go back. Family. Let's go right into family then.
Go right into family. Okay.
Yeah. Family is family's hard, because friends you can choose. And, and I think, sometimes when friends leave, it creates space for new people, and that's one thing people have a hard time with. Is as soon as someone walks out of your life, you're like, but it's good that they're leaving, not because you're not going to miss them and you have closure, but there's so many. It's like, if you think of it as like 7 billion plus people on the earth.
Yeah.
Littlest hobo style, the dog. It's like, go meet other people.
Exactly.
And you get a chance to learn. I'm starting, as I get older, I mean, I've suffered with people who I've really loved, because I love all of them. Yeah. I really do. I want... And early I loved them because I wanted to feel better, but now I love them because I think they deserve it. Yeah. We all deserve to be loved. And when we use the word love, it's like acceptance. Yeah. They all deserve to be cared for. We want what's best for people. And when we ask people, we'll get to that, but the whole thing is, when they left, I used to think, that's really sad. But now I realize, like, when they leave, it's almost like, yay, space for new.
Well, and that brings up that quote, the enemy of the great is not the bad, it's the good, right? Mm-hmm. And that's where it's like, if you've got good, decent, okay friendships, where it's like, we're going out, hanging out at the bar and going out for drinks, and we can small talk, and it's great. Yes. But you're looking for deeper connection. Sometimes you got to let those friendships go.
And people see that as judgment. Yeah. They're so worried to hurt someone's feelings, so that they would get hurt by being left behind.
Yeah. And the reality is, those people may have a story that you hurt them, because they want to hang on to you. But if you're looking for something a little deeper, a little more connected, something different than what you're experiencing.
Yeah, you're doing them a disservice. Yeah. It would be like a relationship. I always find it interesting when people are like, I'm not happy in my relationship, but it's good for now. It's like you're spot holding. Let them go and be free, because what's right for them too. Yeah. If you don't care about someone as much as you really should, and it, then you have to move on. And I know it might hurt them, but what's going to hurt them more? Wasting their time staying in that friendship, that relationship for a long period of time. Yeah. And so that's where kind of romantic and friendship relationships kind of overlap, in the sense where it's like, you're choosing those people. Yeah. But on the people you don't choose, your family. Family conflicts are the most, because people think blood is thicker than water, and they don't get that quote that it's the chosen relationships that are more meaningful, but family bonds are... Yeah. And it's funny, because, a stranger can tell you you're an idiot, and you go, whatever, but then if your parents say it to you, it's like, that could crush your soul.
Yeah, which is crazy that we've created that story with our family, right? Like, how many people blame their family for their issues, which is what therapy and traditional psychology drives us into, is like our past has created who we are.
Right.
So then we believe, oh, my parents created me and my siblings and like all the people that were around me when I was little are the reason I am the way I am.
Yeah.
And in reality, what it is you've made a choice in the moment to choose that path for yourself. It's like the story out of Courage to be Disliked.
All right.
When he talks about the two boys with the alcoholic fathers. You want to tell him?
Yeah, sure. So, one boy, the father's alcoholic, one boy becomes an alcoholic, one doesn't. So researchers come up and they say, what occurred for you? And the first one says, why didn't you drink? And he said, well, how could I? Look at my dad. He's an alcoholic. It's horrible. And then they go to the alcoholic son and they go, why did you end up drinking? He goes, how could I not? Look at my dad.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where people get caught up in their past and they believe that trauma makes them who they are. But I think the real trauma is the reliving of that past. There needs to be a healing moment, because Adler in that book believed there's no such thing as trauma. But we do use the past as an excuse.
Yeah.
And I think often that excuse, what resonates with people, is they think, that person hurt me so bad, I'm going to show them how bad by ruining my life and blaming them so they can see. But they don't care. The best revenge is to live a happy life.
Yeah.
Because despite the fact you went through something hard, and like I said, it's not irrelevant. We want you to heal, but there's a difference between, because there is a difference between letting go and let it go.
Yeah.
Let it go is like, get over it. We want a healing moment, but then we move forward. Letting go is letting go of the energy so that you can create, because the only way you'll recover is by creating in the moment, moving forward.
And I think that's the fear, from what I've witnessed, the fear that people have is when they let go of that blame that they've created, then it means they have to take responsibility in the moment. And it's been so easy to just say, well, I can't help it. I'm this way because of A, B, and C, right? Because of mom and dad, because of so-and-so, grandma and grandpa, or whatever. And that when you take responsibility in that moment, instead of shifting it to judging yourself, which some people will do.
Yeah, or others.
It's recognizing that you have the ability to let go of that energy in the moment.
Right, because
and make a different choice.
I'm sorry, I keep trying to interrupt you.
That's okay, go ahead.
I want to get this out before we move past it, because there's a part we're missing there where it's like, yes, they might blame themselves, but most likely they think if they forgive that they're saying what that person did
was okay. Yeah.
And it's not that it's okay, it's that you're okay.
Well, yeah, especially like in situations like what we went through, right? Where I had an abusive stepdad too, right? And you had an abusive stepdad, and like there were situations where people really hurt us.
Yeah.
And it's tough to let go of that stuff because you
didn't deserve it.
You didn't. You really didn't.
But
you really
that person wasn't intending to hurt you the way that you think. It's not about you. It's about, usually 99% of the time, if not all.
Yeah.
It's about that person replicating something they saw too, and not knowing having any other tool.
Yeah.
And so when you see them, just take a second to look back on any one of your parents or sibling, how they were taught and treated. And actually, that leads me to a story. This is a perfect one where I worked with a woman who was so mad that her parents didn't see her as she hustled through school and was successful in every area of her life. And she still to this day is brilliant, talented, hardworking, and just full of life and great mom, all the stuff. She has the full package of life ahead of her, and she's just miserable for a while because her brother, who's younger, got all the resources, she said. No, not just money, but time, energy, focus, support, love. And she saw it as that. And when we reflected on it, she realized the reason she didn't get it is because she didn't need it. And it wasn't about love. It was about, there was one tire that seemed flat, and I asked how that brother was doing, and she's like, horrible.
Yeah.
Feels pressured,
overwhelmed. He's smothered. They do everything for me. They're always taking care of me. I can't do anything for myself.
I once complained I had no shoes until I met a man that had no feet.
Exactly.
And
because that comparison creates chaos, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so in that understanding of family dynamics, we start to blame people for where we are, but it's really the story that she carries. And there's always stories of families because they're meaningful to us, and we think they need to be a certain way for us to feel better, but often look back on all these relationships. Are you being to yourself what you're looking for from others?
Yeah.
Teach us how to treat you by the way you treat yourself.
Yeah.
Set the bar. It is not selfish to love yourself. It's selfish for anyone, no matter what the relationship, to do it for you.
Yep.
And to look for it on the outside when it's something that's actually within you.
Yep. Exactly.
Let's talk I think we're getting close to our end time.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to say about family relationships or dynamics?
I mean, like we say, they can be the most challenging because a lot of times our behaviors are similar to that of our family, and so what we're witnessing is a mirror reflected upon us.
Right.
Because we're like, what we despise in our family or the things that drive us nuts about our family, we're just afraid to look at that part of ourselves and see that that's part of our human experience as well. And the second we do, like I say, I live with my mom now at 37 years old because we made a choice. When I was younger, when we lived together, my daughter was born when I was 18, and I was like, I got to get out of this house, Mom. We can't live together. We will kill each other. Like, well, there is no way because we were at each other's throats so much at that point in my life, because there was still so much hurt and so much pain. And when I healed from all that, and as did she, we were able to say, like, hey, okay, now I'm a single dad. I got 4 kids. It'd be nice to have the help. She loves being close to the kids. Let's get a house together.
Yeah, it's great. It's
and we've been able to really work that out together and have those conversations. Not that we don't butt heads still.
No, but it's
but if I can still see, but when she does it really well at times too, when I'm in identity and she sees me being really hard on myself, and she'll say, nobody's harder on you than you are on yourself.
Yeah, the family dynamic is a wonder. Like I said, I've been part of a lot of families, having been like a latchkey kid or a dysfunctional or abandoned kid and running to other people's homes. And your family is very healthy, and I mean, they all have their stories, but they're great people, and it's cool to be part of your family too here. And this,
we're happy to have you.
Thanks, man. And so this came to me. I don't know why. There's someone out there. For those of you who are trying to prove yourself to somebody, no matter what the relationship is, you're really trying to prove yourself to yourself. And I ask you, what would you have that you don't have now if you did prove yourself to them? And ask yourself why you don't already have that already, and realizing that you're that source. And I also want to share with us that in the concept of friends and family, friends and relationships. You brought it up early on that we clicked right away. There's a lot of people around us now that have those kind of relationships, and many of them are forever. Some of them are for seasons, like they say, for those things. And when you start to appreciate them, but all those relationships have been beneficial to us, not in what we get, but just in the connection and experience.
In that connection,
together. If you've had someone like that in your life, ask yourself what occurred there. What's occurring? Why doesn't it occur with some people? Why does it occur? So. Yeah. What do you want to say?
I'm just because what's occurring, right, is that your identity drops in that moment, and you show up as a whole person. You're not trying to be somebody. It's the second that somebody sees you clearly, and you allow yourself to be open with them and true, the real you, the truth of who you are. That connection happens instantly, and if anybody
gives it a chance, anyways.
Exactly,
it's the best chance.
Yep.
Right, and if it doesn't, that's okay. As long as you don't make it like, oh, I wasn't enough, because that's where the disconnect happens when we go into identity. Now we're overreaching.
Yeah.
We're trying to strategically win people over. People see it. You know when you meet someone who's just not real.
Yeah.
You know it.
Yeah, when they're trying so hard to get you to see them.
And it almost deters you.
Yeah.
Which is, but I just want you to know that even that person, I was just a bunch of people pop in my head.
Yeah.
That person deserves love.
Of course.
They're just doing it.
Of course.
It's the same motivation that you have by being yourself, is that they just want to be seen and loved. So don't be afraid to let someone know they don't have to try so hard. I was thinking about when we went to Montreal, our good friend of a friend, where he just wanted us to like him. He said we don't have to work so hard. And that connection happened so beautifully.
It really did.
When he put his mask down and just got to hang out. It was a great night. Why? Because we let him feel safe.
Yeah.
So recognize that if you're wearing a mask, who wears a mask? Burglars, robbers, people who are serial killers.
Yep.
It's a threat. How do we treat threats? We fight or flight. Put down your identity, your mask for life, and allow it to come, and know that you can only be wounded if you're trying to prove who you are to others and trying to defend your identity because you want to be seen. And as you just become more presence, and that is the most unconditional loving version of yourself without thought, realize that you're indestructible and you can have better relationships. And one day you'll have a best friend like me.
That's beautifully said, man. Very beautifully said. Sometimes you say things and I just want to sit and be like, oh, that's so good.
You think I get paid by the word. Is there anything else? Speaking of words, as we tie this up, because I don't know where we are time-wise, but we think we're getting close to our 30.
Yeah.
Anything you want to...
No, I think we covered the bulk of it.
And that was episode 9, part 2 of relationships. We hope it resonated. If you have questions, please comment. If you want something you want us to cover, please let us know.
Or reach out to us on socials. We're always there, willing to respond. Don't forget to like and subscribe and come back for more, because we're going to keep this going as long as we got you guys watching and listening.
Thank you for being part of this worthy yet humble herd. We look forward to seeing you next time.
Yeah, much love.
Episode 10. Bye.